Hey everyone, this is Max from Disc Review. I just wanted to give a quick announcement before the episode begins. My band Cool Blooded is releasing our very first single. The song will be released on February 10th, and I just want as many people to hear it as possible. So if you go to the very first link in the description of this video, that link will take you to a place where you can pre-save the song before it comes out. So please go pre-save my new single. It's called The Deep End. I'm very excited for you guys to hear it. Thank you. Hello and welcome to Disc Review, the podcast that goes track by track through a different album each week.
And we're your hosts, Max and Matt. Join us as we explore some of our favorite records.
No, I'm a fan, I swear.
I feel like I've become a music normie.
I'm tired of being Mr. Positive Guy.
Dude, that's not human.
This is certifiably the most boring album I've ever heard.
And there's a reason they don't do it, because it's terrible.
We hope you enjoy the show. Let's get into it. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Disc Review. This week we're covering an album that's been highly anticipated by a lot of you. We've had comments to talk about this album, and so here we are. We're talking about A Flair for the Dramatic by Pierce the Veil. This is the last Pierce the Veil album we have to talk about before the new one comes out, because we've already talked about all the others. So we're excited to get this one done and focus on preparing and getting ready for the new album. And, you know, I'm excited for it. I've really liked the new singles, but today we're here to talk about what started it all. So, Matt, what are your thoughts on this album?
Well, my thought is people are excited about this. I don't know. Even as someone who was into Pierce the Veil, I didn't really care for this record very much. I don't know if you had strong opinions about it. There's some songs that I think might stand out, but in general, I feel like it's by far the weakest, and kind of feels like the black sheep of the Pierce the Veil discography.
Oh, for sure. It's the weakest album, and we'll talk about it track by track, and we'll talk about like what's good and what's bad about it. But I think the big difference here is, the lineup, because at this point it was just Vic and his brother Mike writing the songs. Jaime and Tony weren't a part of the band yet. And so I think that has a big thing to do with it. I think they were also just trying to find their style, and they hadn't quite found it yet. They were kind of perfecting what little style they had decided they were going for. And it sounds a lot like their earlier work, which they did on other bands. What I think you know a little bit about that. Was it Before Today?
Oh, just barely. That's like a memory I totally forgot, but it kind of sounds familiar now.
Yeah, I think that this style, like especially the instrumentation, sounds a lot like Before Today, kind of like a more refined version of Before Today, because that band wasn't very good. And then they started Pierce the Veil and kind of did the same thing, but maybe a little bit bigger, a little bit more post-hardcore. And that's definitely the direction they went in the future, is the post-hardcore route. But this was kind of them finding their footing there.
I mean, it's definitely impressive to see how much better they got at songwriting. I feel like there's a lot of their style in this record, but just the quality of just the entire song, the instrumentation especially, you can tell that there's, some new people on some instruments. I'm definitely impressed. This is an okay start. Of course, I'm going to cut some slack for the first record. I think they've definitely grown a lot.
Well, let's talk about this album cover. No lie, I think this album art is ass. It's absolutely atrocious.
Well, it's just poor quality, I would say. Like, everything about it. I mean, the lettering looks very cheap. Looks very, kind of not very well put together. And I don't hate the concept. It's just not, done in a great way.
It looks very Theater Kid. I don't know if you got that vibe,
Well,
but it's like on a stage.
I mean, it literally is on a stage, but yeah, it does make me think of what a Theater Kid would do with album art. But I don't know. Maybe we shouldn't be saying that, because a lot of theater kids love Pierce the Veil. Maybe
that is actually true. It's just crazy to me, the fluctuation, because their album art on Collide with the Sky and on Misadventures I thought was really solid. And and to be honest, this isn't even their worst album art. I think Selfish Machine is really bad. I think it's bad.
I can't even decide. I think they're equally bad. But that's still bad. Like, well, I guess the point is they didn't improve, huh?
Yeah, I guess they didn't. Not until later records. But yeah, let's just jump right into these songs here.
Jumping into the track by track.
Yeah, first one is Chemical Kids and Mechanical Brides, a song I never really much cared for, even when I liked Pierce the Veil. I think coming back to the song, one thing I just thought of was just, I feel like the entire genre is based on this one song. I don't know, like, it just sounds so cliche and stereotypical of the genre. I'm like, it just reminds me, I've heard this song like 100 times, you know? I don't know if you get that feeling. It just feels kind of generic to me. And if this is the first, then props to him, but that's just kind of how I felt about it.
Yeah, is there some sort of connection between this song and the album cover? Because there's a bride on the album cover. She's like crying or holding flowers or something.
I would assume so.
And it, mechanical brides, but I didn't get the vibe that she was mechanical. I guess maybe mechanical is more of a metaphor for being selfish, which they kind of touch on later with selfish machine.
Yeah, I don't know. I think they just pulled some imagery off. There's a bride. There's a song about what's called the cheap bouquet. She's holding a bouquet of flowers. I think it's just pretty. It feels surface level to me.
The second song is Currents Convulsive. This song is a little more the style we hear on the album Selfish Machines. I imagine this is kind of one of the songs they would point to when writing Selfish Machines, because I feel like the styles really fit together. I like the bridge where it sounds like he's yelling into a megaphone. I think for a while they would play this song live where he would actually pull out a megaphone and for this part. So I think that's kind of a cool thing. It makes the song stick out a little bit to me with some chaotic energy there.
Is it him doing that section?
I thought it was. It
doesn't really sound like him to me, but maybe I'm wrong. You know what it does sound of? It sounds like Set It Off. Because they do the exact same thing on I don't even remember what song. Do you remember?
Enemy, is that the one?
Yeah. Yeah, it's probably that one. No, it's probably that one.
Yeah, it's kind of a goofy shtick, but I don't know. It makes it different for sure.
The next song is Yeah Boy and Dollface. Was this the lead single? It's definitely the most popular.
I think it probably was.
I mean, its song stands out on the record for sure, just because it has the best melodies. They're strong. The chorus is catchy, and I think that's really just what elevates it.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely one of the better songs. I think the lyrics are a little too edgy at times, especially all the talk about like knives.
The whole record has that problem. I don't.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I'm just not I just don't like that style anymore. And I don't think it's very popular at all. I don't hear music that much like this. You kind of have to go back to this era. But yeah, just so much. It's just repetitive imagery of the same stuff that just does not appeal to me. So I don't know. A lot of the record lyrics on this felt pretty weak to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think that like the sentiment is there. They're talking about something important like self-harm, but I feel like it's very hard to walk that line of like,
it's like, are you glamorizing it or are you?
Yeah,
I feel like other records they did it better, because this one it's like I don't know. We'll talk about it on another song that I think is a better example, but I feel like there were songs that were there on Selfish Machines that were like showing how bad it is and horrible, and this is it's just saying it, and it's like there's no opinion here. So to me, it just feels like you're glamorizing it.
It's also the first song that talks about the themes of like a fatal car crash. When he says, "I only need one hand to drive when you're with me," it's that's a theme that comes about a lot.
That's true.
Not only on this record, but like a lot of their records, they talk about car crashes. So and like it talks about it a lot more in a couple more of these songs, but even their newest album is going to be called The Jaws of Life, which is a tool used to cut people out of car wrecks. So it's for some reason they really like that imagery.
He really likes it, yeah.
The next song is I'd Rather Die Than Be Famous. I guess this song title is kind of a lie, because since writing this song, Pierce the Veil's really blown up. I mean, they're not like totally mainstream, but they're about as mainstream as post-hardcore can get. Yeah. But I mean, I would say this is probably my least favorite on the record. I think the screams aren't very good. It's understandable. Vic was young when he did this. He probably was still figuring out his voice. I just think that the way he screams is better now, and kind of sounds like he's hurting himself in this one.
Yeah, I just wrote, I don't think I'd ever listen to this on my own. This was by far the weakest for me. Just the screaming, the melodies don't do anything to help it. The next track is The Cheap Bouquet, another one with that imagery we talked about from album art. I thought this one was okay. I think it's got some of the better melodies on the record, which not all of them have that, so I was okay with this one.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is actually one of my favorite songs on the album. It suffers from some of the same problems as the last song with the screaming, but I think the screams are pulled off a little bit better on this one. The ending is what really steals the show for me, though. It has a great guitar part that launches the listener straight into like a chaotic mess of screams that I thought was really fun. I remember being a teenager and trying to write a song where the ending has a similar feel, and I couldn't really ever match the energy. But just a quick note, there's also a line that talks about crashing his car into an ocean. So it's all over.
But that is a really cool section. I agree.
Then we have Falling Asleep on a Stranger. Here we get an acoustic song, which is definitely warranted here. I'm really glad they did it. Pierce the Veil doesn't really have a lot of acoustic stuff, but I wish they would have done more because I think it's pretty good. Vic's voice goes pretty hard in this song and throughout the whole record, which I think is a sign that he hadn't really matured his voice quite yet, because we get a lot more variety in his voice on later records. Here it's kind of the same powerful, high-pitched voice constantly through the whole thing.
Yeah, I like how different this one is. Absolutely. They need to do more acoustic stuff. I think even just opening with an acoustic guitar just brings a lot of variety to the record, which it really needs. The next song is She Sings in the Morning. I don't know about you, but I find a lot of these song titles to be really generic, and I can never keep these songs straight. I always have that problem. I think this one is probably the better of the chaotic songs. I think it's got a solid chorus, and I just find it better to listen to, especially compared to the song we didn't like a couple tracks back.
Yeah, this is probably one of the more interesting ones for sure. It's a little out of place on the album. There's not really any song quite like it. It's really fast, really technical, a lot of screams. I liked this song a lot as a teenager because I was just kind of getting into the whole screaming and post-hardcore scene. I even learned this song on the guitar a long time ago. It's pretty much just all alternate picking. But I just think this song never really got fully filled out. Like, it's pretty short. It only has one verse. It skips the second verse and goes straight to the bridge. And I think it's cool to play around with song structure like that, but I think that they needed the second verse to warrant how hard it goes in the end. But then we have the balcony scene. I've always felt that it's kind of funny how Pierce the Veil likes piano songs so much, even though they don't have a piano player in the band. I don't know if you've ever thought about that, but they, like, on this record and the next record, they have full piano songs, and this is they don't have anyone to play it live. They just use backing tracks, which is fine. But I would if it were me, I would have got a person to play the piano. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree. I think they like to bring it in as a tool to mix up on the record, but other than that, I don't think they're very interested in it. Some of their best songs do have piano though, so I agree. I think there'd be some value in it. Yeah, but this is the one that I was talking about earlier, that like the bridge is probably the strongest part melodically. Like, it's pretty catchy, but this is the one that I feel like it's just like talking about all, counting to 3 and holding your hand and jump, and it's like, okay, but what? That's the one that kind of bugs me. Yeah, it's just like, it's just using that imagery to be edgy to me. I don't know.
Yeah, I did kind of get that vibe too, because it's, I'm assuming it's alluding to suicide, but the song never really got to that point until all of a sudden it just like threw that in there. And I think that they're a little more tasteful with it in the records to come.
The next track is Drella. This is, I don't know, not a standout for me. I think it has one of the weakest choruses on the record. It's just not catchy. It doesn't stick out to me. That's really all I have to say about it.
I mean, yeah, this one is not my favorite either. It has the most car crash messaging in it. There's a line talking about, the girl's asleep in the front seat, and he's constantly driving her around, and there's obviously some sort of tension in the car. And then he says, "Red water leaves us as we collide." That's a pretty dark line. So I mean, it's like drenched in this song, and I think that it's also a kind of a interesting thing that they called it Drella. I'm assuming that's a nickname for Cinderella because
Mm-hmm.
he calls the girl Cinderella at one point. But I've never heard anyone use that phrasing before. Have you?
No, I've never heard either. So it doesn't really mean much to me. And he rarely references it. It's kind of a weird title.
All right. The next one is Diamonds and Why Men Buy Them. This is, again, not really a favorite of mine. I mean, I've listened to it so many times and it still never really grew on me. Although I admit I've been singing the lines wrong for years. I've always thought that he said, "You say that I never fought for you the way he did," but the line is apparently, "You say that I never bother you the way he did." So that kind of changes the context a little bit.
I hate when that happens, because then you kind of want it to be your lyric or whatever, and
Yeah.
when you learn, you're just kind of disappointed, and you listen to it, and it's just not the same. It's
Well, also, there's a
dangerous.
line at the end where I thought he was saying, "Please say hello," but the Spotify lyrics says, "Re-say hello," like RESAY. I don't know if that one's true.
Don't listen to Spotify
Don't-
lyrics. We've talked about this. Go look up, Genius lyrics or whatever you want to use.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, not everybody buys physical media, especially not now, but I've always trusted the official packets. Remember when they give the lyric packets out?
Yeah, those are
Those
cool.
for the CDs. Those are cool because it's like, okay, this is the official source, right? And because sometimes the internet's wrong.
I'm not gonna lie, dude. I think that bands have a responsibility to
To clear up
put
the lyrics.
official lyrics somewhere because
Like post
when
them on the
it's-
internet. If you don't want to
Yeah.
make, if we're not doing physical copies really anymore, like you're already making them for the some CDs you do make. You post these online. Stop letting the internet just wonder what you said. This is your song. This is your music. Do you not care if people understand what you're saying, or they're just like, well, don't matter to me. I don't know.
As long as they're buying it. Well, do you remember?
Who cares what's
Do
after
you
the fact?
remember? Do you remember when Misadventures came out and it was like, well, I think it was the day that Texas is Forever came out, and you and I were like texting back and forth while in class, and we were like trying to figure out what some of the lyrics were because the lyrics hadn't posted yet.
Yeah.
But we were listening to the song, and like lyrics got posted, and we were reading them, and they were wrong, and like an updated version got posted later. And so it's just like a guessing game. Why do they have
really
to do
is,
it like that?
especially on songs like that where you just can't hear very well. Yeah, I agree. I would love just to drop a song or like drop a lyric video that can help too. That
Yeah, those are cool.
Can be considered an official source. So I don't know. I mean, we like lyrics. That's a big reason why we even started the channel. So we would appreciate it, and it's just funny to me that it's their own art, and they're just like, I don't know. But it's not Pierce the Veil. It's everybody. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
But the next track is Wonderless. This is the closer and a really strong closer. I think this is the best song on the album. It's just really unique, and it's the only track that makes me feel. It's really good at capturing a certain feeling, especially on the bridge, which is definitely the best part. For me, it's just got a killer melody and some great lyrics that really paint a picture that you can feel. It's that feeling of knowing someone, and you move on in life, and it's like he's talking about, obviously, he kind of paints the story about going to Hollywood earlier in the song, but it's like seeing someone on the front page, and if you see me there and all that, those feelings, I don't know, it works for me. I can actually feel something on this, and it's the only song I come back to.
Yeah, I agree. This is my favorite song on the album too. It has a great build-up that's really slow and pays off at the end. There's so many great lines. It's almost hard to pick the best ones out, but I would probably say I'd have to go with the ending where he says, "I'm destroying what I love."
That's
the way
a good
he
part.
belts it out, it's just so emotional and attention-grabbing. And I feel like this song talks a lot about kind of like wanting to be famous and all the problems that can cause in a person's life. And also the line where he says that you were talking about in the bridge, "If you don't find me in the front page, find a way to say that you saw me. If you don't find me in the movies, find a way to say that you knew me." I think underneath the desire to be famous is actually a really sad and wholesome desire just to be seen and known for who you are. And that's why I love this song so much.
Yeah, I think it definitely just speaks some truth that people want and need to hear. I agree. I've felt that way for a while about, you know, sometimes if you think about becoming famous, maybe it's just because you want to impress someone who's just right there in your life, but it's, hard to connect. And you know what? You don't need to be famous. Just try to find ways to connect with people in your life, and you can find a lot of happiness there. And I actually think this song does a good job of painting that picture, and I just really appreciate the depth on this track.
Yeah, and you know what? It's kind of like you don't really understand how being famous won't scratch that itch of wanting to be known and seen and understood until like you, I feel like, get a taste of it. I mean, obviously you and I are not famous. Our channel has 100 plus subscribers, which we love you all, and it's great to have you coming back every week. But I'll tell you what, when my wife compliments me, it's way more important to me than getting a few hundred views on a video, So it's just, I don't know, the people in your life are what makes you happy for sure.
Yeah, but I think it's a great way to close out the record. And in general, I don't like this record very much, and I've liked all the rest of PR-ESAVE. It's just their first record, and it was rough. I appreciate the one song I really do like. In general, just to close out PR-ESAVE entirely, it was pretty fun to look back. I think this is one of the most nostalgic bands for us. We kind of grew up with it kind of together, especially with Misadventures coming out and being big fans both at that same time. It's been definitely a trip looking back, and I'm sure there's some other nostalgic bands we're going to look into.
For sure, yeah. I didn't really enjoy going through this album that much just because, it's never been my favorite. I've connected to some of their other albums a lot more, but I appreciate where they started and where they came from and how they've developed their sound. And I think that's what this album shows, is the progression. But everybody, that is our review of A Flair for the Dramatic.
Just talking.
Before we close out, Matt, I wanted to have a quick discussion about being truthful in our reviews here, because on our Collide with the Sky review, we were really positive, basically saying that the album was near perfect. We gave glowing reviews of a lot of the songs, and the comments on that video were all positive, talking about how much they love the album and agree with what we had to say. Now, that was not the case with our Selfish Machines review. We were a little bit more critical of that album, for good reason, I might add. A few of the songs did not hold up, but we still said we liked the album. We liked a lot of the songs, but pretty much all the comments were talking about how wrong we were about songs like Fast Times at Claremont High and New National Anthem. So my question is,
Really?
Are we shooting ourselves in the foot by giving our actual opinions on bad songs?
Yeah. Well, that's just how it works, right? People don't click on these videos because they hate Selfish Machines. They click on it because they love it.
Yeah.
I get it, 100%. You want to hear us praise the albums you like, or else you wouldn't click on it. I understand. I think as time's gone on with, this podcast and this channel, we've kind of understood now that it's, we could just say everything's great and probably get more views, but I think it's more interesting for us to actually show our opinion. I think I've kind of grown out of that shell and become more critical. I don't think if we did this album, 6 months, a year ago, that I could say what I did about it. I'd probably just praise it a lot more.
Yeah.
And I think praising it's also easier. It's so easy to say it has good melodies, it's catchy, or whatever, and it's harder to think, well, why doesn't it work? And we try to get to the bottom of that. I felt like we could do a better job, but like what we talked about with the balcony scene, I feel like seeing this is why I think it doesn't work is more valuable to discussion. And we're going to mostly pick albums we really like, but every now and then we're going to pick an album that we don't like, and I think that's the good way to go.
I totally agree with you. I mean, I think another thing that people need to realize and understand about music is you're totally within your right to enjoy a bad song.
It's entirely subjective.
Yeah, if
no
you
good
like
or bad.
the song,
This is
you
just
like
an
it.
opinion.
Yeah, and I mean, even if we say something subjective, like, oh, I think that this song did this specific thing poorly, it's like, okay, you can still love that. You can still love that about it. It's just up to you. So just, take what we say with a grain of salt. Come here for fun, not for objective opinions. But yeah, we appreciate you coming regardless. We love having you guys listen. So thank you so much for coming.